Welcome to it. Thank you for coming all the way here, guys. I know your houses are more warmer than here, but other than that, thank you for the effort. We are at it, Democracy Unplugged, discussing education in South Africa. Are we in crisis or are we doing well? And today with my panelist next to me, Nombulelo Chiya, Chiya. She's the SLC president of TVET, and next to her is Nhlanhla. And most of you know him from the history of Dudula, but also he's the leader of Soweto Parliament in Soweto. So it's a youth discussion, and I'm hoping that all of you here will join into the discussion, and let's try to find solutions to what we have right now. So I will start with you, Nombulelo. 1976, we had young people rising up in Soweto, demanding better education, scrapping the whole Bantu education system. It's been over 50 years. Where do you think we are right now?
Mandla. Awethu. No, it's important for us to start there. I think when we look at the generation of the generation they fought to scrap the entire Bantu education system, they did a lot that they could be able to do from their aspect. It was a situation where they had to mobilize young people to fight against a system that was not beneficial towards them. But 50 years going into next year, when you look at the current situation, not a lot has changed. If you look at the education system from your primary schools, for your high schools, even to the institutions of higher learning, there's still a huge challenge that young people are facing in terms of accessing institutions of higher learning, even high schools and everything of this sort. There's also even a challenge of the curriculum itself. If you look at the kind of information education that is being provided towards young people, it's not really beneficial. Hence, you find ourselves in a situation where we have a high rate of unemployment for young people because the skills that they need to acquire for them to be able to go into the working space, they are not able to acquire them. And we have a huge number of young people who are not even able to access institutions of higher learning because there's limited space, because there's challenges like your financial exclusion challenges. There's challenges you come from a specific class within society for you to be able to access those institutions of higher learning.
So it sounds like you are saying we're in a pretty bad situation right now.
Most definitely.
Kat?
Yeah.
Your thoughts, my brother? Where are we right now? It was in Soweto where all this thing happened.
Yeah, I mean, just the other day we're celebrating 1976 student uprising. And, you know, maybe sometimes let's not be too quick to just go into celebrations. Let's look at the situation for what it is from a bigger spotlight, being outside the box. I mean, president of Soweto Parliament, it's easy for me to speak pro. So just devil's advocate a bit. Student 1976, when you're a student, generally president will tell you, we are more emotional and reactional, more than we should be rational. And that's more the responsibility of old people. So when I think of my brother, Tsietsi Mashinini, and my other brothers and sisters who died, some who died during that time, what were they really fighting for? And this is a conversation that the country needs to have. Are we saying they were fighting for better education? Or are we saying they were victim of the system where they thought they were fighting for better education? Khanti, they're just fighting for not to be taught in Afrikaans, which at the time is deemed the colonizer's language, in defense of English. If TVET then says, we are fighting to scrap off and decolonize the apartheid, the education system, so that I and the President Kovetsi can study medicine kaSizulu, so that English can stop being, or even Afrikaans can stop being a measure of our intelligence in this country. It's a better fight, but I'm not here to downplay their fight. Their fight was very important for the time. It then gives us the opportunity to say that since we are at this type of vibrating at this level of intellects, I mean, look at her, then we can maybe start saying, let's decolonize the education system. My biggest thing is to decolonize the education system, not to make it exclusive to a Sotho-speaking person, make it inclusive for even a French person sitting in France can come and be able to enjoy education in South Africa, because most of our brothers and sisters have been able to acquire their higher institution and education, learning from China, UK, America, Cuba. I mean, our doctors, Cuba, you can name it, you know. So I'm then saying my biggest disappointment 50 years post 76 is that our education system is still completely colonized.
One would argue that when you speak about decolonizing education, are we then trying to say what we have today, we just have to switch the language and maybe that will be, or should we change even the curriculum itself? And I'm going to this part of early childhood development. And the part that you mentioned to say we're in a bad shape, but somebody would say, my kids are eating at school this year lately. They have free education, they have free books, free stationery. You have NSFAS adverts. What is the problem with you guys? We are giving you everything that you need. Where is the problem? Is it maybe motivation?
I think we must be able to firstly outline that we don't downplay, like Nhlanhla said, the transformation and development that has taken place over the years. However, the biggest part comes in from my aspect to access, you understand? When we look at numbers and you compare the numbers that we have, there's a lot of young people. I mean, 2024 was the highest class that had the highest pass rate in matric. But a number of those young people were not able to access institutions of higher learning. We have round about 26 institutions of higher learning, public universities. And VET University, you have round about 86,000 applications that people from matric are able to put in for them to be able to access institutions of higher learning. But out of those 86,000 applications, only 6,000 students got accepted at VET University. You look at your UJ, out of 600,000 applications, only at around 11,000 or 12,000 applications were able to get accepted. But not particularly because young people did not pass, not particularly because they didn't qualify for institutions of higher learning, but it was because of limited space. These people came in with distinctions. I had people coming into my office who had distinctions, absolutely amazing marks, but they're not able to get accepted in the university on the particular basis that there is limited space. So it's not only about the issue of saying there is NSFAS. We acknowledge that. I mean, there's a lot of young black people, there's a lot of young people who were actually able to graduate, go back to their communities and give back because of NSFAS. I, for one, am a beneficiary of NSFAS. So we do appreciate the bigger role that NSFAS plays in terms of assisting people to access institutions of higher learning. But is it really assisting? Is it really transformational? It is not, particularly if you look at institutions that were previously white established institutions. I'm going to make an example. VET University, the system itself, it's not really accommodative to the marginalized group, to the missing middle. There is some people who have parents who are working for government. Those people don't qualify to be funded by NSFAS, but they don't actually earn enough for them to be able to afford education. Some of them have 3 schools, or rather they have 3 students, or other parents or kids or children who are in universities. They cannot be able to afford the education of all these particular 3 people. So it's not only about access, as a matter of fact, it's about access and success, because as much as you can be able to get into the university, you fight to get inside. And you also fight for yourself to be able to survive, you understand?
Because just on a side note, do we then build more universities, or do we encourage young people to go to TVET colleges? Maybe you can take it, and Tata, you can take it as well.
Yeah, look, I think initially you asked about curriculum. Yeah. I think the curriculum in this country, if you're speaking high school, must change. Even early childhood development, it needs to change completely. I believe in an education system that complements your economic system. So if at the center of our economy, we've got agriculture as a pillar, a very strong pillar, why isn't it that agriculture becomes a serious part of our curriculum? If we've got mining as a strong pillar of our education system, of our economy, why don't our kids learn that? Why? I mean, I consider myself as very well traveled, well exposed, but all that education I had to achieve by myself. The education system did not give me that particular advance, you know. So my biggest concern is that some countries, their curriculum is really studying our economy. That means your kids that you are going to give birth to, they're going to be working for someone that masters our economy more than they can ever imagine themselves. And that is my biggest problem that I have. Our education system must be in line and fully aligned with our economic system.
So it must feed into the economy.
100%.
There is an issue where people say about access. Some students, they only want to go to VET because it is VET, right? They don't want to go to UJ or any other varsity. But also, the previous government of Zuma built, I think, 2 universities, if I'm not mistaken, as a way to kind of open this thing of have access, make it easy. But also there is something called TVET colleges in South Africa that are neglected. So don't you think that maybe the issue of access is because all of us want a particular standard of vets, or either it's because we still regard TVET colleges as something for failures?
I mean, the numbers themselves, they don't balance. I mean, you are correct. There are young people who don't want to see themselves going into TVET colleges because they want to go to VET universities, the one that is at the top. But really, I've been engaging with a lot of leaders from TVET colleges, and there's a lot of skills that have been provided there for young people, for them to be able to go into the working place. I mean, there's plumbers that are there, there's engineers that are there, and everything of the sort. But if you count the TVET colleges, if I'm not mistaken, they're not even above, they're around 50, they're not above 60. So there's still a challenge of access, right? So when I speak about the challenge of access, there's millions of young people who are in matric. Whether you combine the public universities, you combine them with the TVET colleges, there's still a crisis. Hence, I say it's a crisis of access, because regardless of whether university, regardless of TVET, because there's a number of people also from Emakasi, a number of people from the rural areas who do want to explore TVET colleges, who do want to go there, because NSFAS also funds students who go to TVET colleges. So even though they are able to go to either public institutions or they are able to go to TVET colleges, there's still a crisis of access.
My brother, you spoke on the issue of streamlining our education to feed our economy, right? And South Africa is well known for mining, agriculture, and all of that. And most of these skills are found either, as I've said, in those TVET colleges, where lately, if you have been honest, the plumbing jobs, the construction jobs that have been done by our neighbors, I don't want to call them foreigners in South Africa. There is an attitude to some extent of, we want the new generation, from what I've heard, we want blue-collar jobs or white-collar jobs, where we are on suits and ties like Bafana here, standing here, than to be somewhere in an overall. Isn't that also the problem, the mental attitude?
Yeah, but the mental attitude, no one is born with it, right? So it's created again in the education system.
Sure.
Because the very same education system does not prepare Nhlanhla to get fine-tuned into his natural abilities, his natural talents. Then when I get when I turn 18 and start searching for universities and colleges, when I can't get into vets, they tell me to go be a plumber. And at that time, I'm 19, 18. Who said I want to be a plumber? Who said I'm even good at it? Who said I want to do, example, because of most of the time they can't get into their marketing degrees that the same media and education system is putting up there. Then when I can't get in because I don't qualify the points, marketing, I start having a problem saying that and the presidents, the SRCs will say, no, Zamanesing. And then, second semester will make your plan, because these are the realities of our time, right? So I can't even stand blood that time. So you see, again, it's a problem of the education system. If you go to countries that are amongst the fastest growing economies of the world, you speak about China. You then understand that in China, these kids start getting concentrated, focused, and they start getting fed well into their realm of capability, and they start channeling them into the right spaces at an early age. Come university, they are fuck on. When your kids start thinking that it's now time for me to take life serious, they are competing with a 14-year-old in China. And again, we then need to start competing as a country. The bulk of the students, or rather the graduates, whether it's a graduate of high school or tertiary institution, the bulk of our graduates, could they ever then compete with those coming from Asia? And then once again, if you look at a country point of view, will our country ever be given an opportunity to compete internationally properly? The answer is simple. The answer is no. We'll always be in the third world. We'll always be behind at the back seat, simply because our foundation of our education, and when you look at our education system and you dissect it, it does not feed into success. It feeds into people that must just wear a suit and tie. These days, the truth of the matter is that maybe the people that are sitting here, you might have, a few of you or all of you might have qualification of some sort, right? But are you doing what you studied? Are you doing what you studied? And the answer most of the time is no. I'm a pilot by profession. Am I flying planes? The answer is no.
You're actually working
I'm
on the
here,
ground.
and if I wanted to be narrow-minded and say, and just start speaking posh and walk in here with my pilot uniform just to show you guys that, listen, I'm also that of a serious class of people.
Yeah.
I've traveled the world flying. That will not get my immediate siblings and my mom to eat at night.
But I think what you are stressing, Nhlanhla, is the issue of development, early development.
Early childhood development.
But now we have a problem, President. We are told that our children, those ones who speak English now, our children right now, they can't read for meaning at grade 4 to grade 7. And they've been through crèche, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. Who do we blame? Do we blame the teachers? Do we blame parenting or the system itself? Who do we blame?
The system itself. I think most definitely the system itself, because it's about the curriculum that is being taught at the young age. I mean, if you go...
But if you can't comprehend, when you go grade 7, a simple meaning as a whole, you still have to blame the system. You have a teacher in front of the class.
Yeah, we're being taught Sihuwa in isiZulu. You understand? When you're in your primary school, everything is being taught in isiZulu. Even if you go into your high schools right now, you see that when you are being taught life sciences, when you're being taught physical sciences, all of those things are being taught in our mother tongue languages, of which is where we speak about the need for decolonization. It's easier for a child in England for them to be able to just easily develop because everything is being taught in their mother tongue language, English. So even with us, our languages that are not the ones that are being used. I mean, we're being tested using English. And then when you see those children being elevated towards university, they find it most difficult for them to be able to transform because when you get to institutions of higher learning, everything is there for English. Research, everything is there for English. And it's a bit of a challenge for us to be able to transform because when you go towards your primary school, when you go towards your high school, everything is being taught in our own mother tongue language, of which is how the system actually, or how things are actually supposed to be like. Everything should be taught in our own languages. We must be able to transform information and be able to transform education in our own languages. What is wrong about teaching life sciences in isiZulu? What is wrong about me writing my own research at TVET University in my own language, isiZulu? What is wrong about that? There is absolutely nothing wrong. So hence I say I blame the system itself of how the education curriculum is right now because of course I wouldn't be able to explain what does this essay says when I'm doing grade 7 and everything to me is being taught in my own mother tongue language. So it's that challenge we're currently facing.
But somebody else will counter that argument and say English, apart from its history of colonization, it's also a universal language. So therefore, if you're going just to focus on switching the English, things will be better. I will also then not putting these kids on a disadvantage where they have to do something internationally and all they know is Setswana or Zulu. And at the same time, why are we not also blaming the teachers? Maybe the quality of teachers must be questioned as well. How does a learner pass grade 1, 2, 3, 4, but yet they can't read for meaning? Nhlanhla?
Look, I'm going to blame the system and blame the parents who did not correct the system because where they're sitting now, I walk in, by the way, I went to St. David's. I walk in, I get home in Mirolands, Zone 3 Mirolands in Soweto, and then I open my biology homework. I'm now faced with photosynthesis and mitochondria. And my mom saying that, are you still speaking English?
Yeah.
But now, when you look at Dylan Clarkson, who happens to be a very close friend of mine, wouldn't mind the example, got home, and even if you look at just the social dynamics, I went to North from Sandton, you go to North, from North you go to Soweto, and then you get there 3 hours later after school. Dylan got there five minutes after the bell went off, right? His mother studied that because the mother was not subjected to Bantu education. My mother was. These are the realities of the country. So we then need to correct it by also understanding that as a country, we need to find a level where even our parents, you see what I hate about South Africa and about just politics in general and human beings. You know, reparations is not money, guys. It's not only money, guys. It's also taking your people to therapy. Today, we all say, childhood trauma. What do you think childhood trauma in apartheid was? My mother having to see Hector Peterson being shot in front of her. Never a single day in any of these trauma units and getting help for her psychological well-being. Now she gives birth to Nhlanhla, who's supposed to go through a broken education system that she can't even assist with. Then it's a bigger monster than we think. But I appreciate that the agenda of the day is education system. We can't get into all those issues. So with the education, For me, we can't even begin, I agree with the president, we can't even begin to say that English is a global language and what's the benefit of a child who's speaking in Zulu. Let me tell you the two powerhouses outside the Western powers. Russia. If you go to Russia, even McDonald's is written in their language. Sure. If you go to China, even everything is written in Mandarin.
Even the Middle East, yes.
Even the Middle East. But they are progressive. Their economies are progressive. So we can't even begin to say that if we resort to isiZulu to make it easy for comprehension's sakes, our kids might be, at the later stage, our kids might suffer from not being able to compete with the world. I disagree with that. I disagree. Our kids will be able to compete at the highest level because it's not language that is a sign of intelligence. It's the knowledge that you then express with language that gives you the intelligence that you should have.
And I want to come in shortly to say that when we speak about the concept of decolonization, we must be unapologetic about it. So we cannot therefore say that when you compare the languages of isiZulu and English within the international community, then English is therefore better or it's the most important as compared to our own mother tongue languages. If we can be able to speak our own mother tongue languages, I mean, there's technology right now. They can be able to use translators if there needs to be translation. So we cannot therefore undermine our own languages simply because we say they are not relevant within the international community. If there needs to be translation, there's technology for us to translate our own languages. But when we speak about the concepts of decolonization, we must be unapologetic about it.
I'm going to maybe say it this way. You went to St. David's, right? Now the middle class in South Africa, they are taking their kids to Kuro and all these private schools. And that has become more of everything government given, it's mediocre. And every parent is taking their kids to these schools. As much as we have this political mindset that we want to decolonize and reclaim Africa, at the same time, it's our very own black brothers who are taking these kids to all this either London-sponsored school or whatever traditional school. So isn't that also defeating the ends of trying to decolonize the education system? No, President, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. If you look like from your Soweto, Makasi and everything of the sort, any child who's studying in your township or rather in town or in another different province or a higher or middle C or what do you call them? Model C schools. They are taken as better schools or better children who can be able to articulate themselves better in their English. So we can therefore say that to some extent.
Isn't it also about the quality of the education rather than just the language?
Not really. I mean, I'm at Vet University. I came from Ngubeko, I came from Gala, I came from Filiti.
And you're the president.
And I'm the president of Vet University. So we cannot therefore say it's about the quality of education. So any child either from rural areas can be able to make it. If you're able to pass very well, then you can be able to make it. I engage a lot of people who came from Modise high schools and I still come out on top. Not to say that I'm trying to motivate myself, but I'm trying to iron out the fact that simply because I come from rural areas or from disadvantaged background, it doesn't mean that the education there is much more lower than the other one. But we can argue in terms of resources, because resources, there's a huge difference. When you look at schools in rural areas and those who are in Modise, there's limited resources in your rural area schools. There's limited resources in your public schools. The resources are limited as compared to the other schools in the other side.
Dex?
Yeah, look, I completely agree with the president because...
True life story. Speaking from experience.
Yeah, I speak directly from experience, and you know, with my situation, I lived in every day. I was in the best of both worlds. Extreme poverty in Soweto, having to travel to a St. David's super opulent school, and you then get to learn about the best of both worlds. And I can tell you something. As much as we may think that this side is darker in Soweto, all presidents of this country came from the dark side, if you think it's dark. True. So tell me one person from St. David's who maneuvered his way through the system and was able to lead this country, the highest office of this country. Can never be. You haven't found one. I know they are coming because the world is getting smaller by the day. So it's not even about the color or where you come from. So I agree with the president. You could be from Matatiele, Lalin. You are going to lead this country if you really want to lead this country. It's not even about you and your ability to speak English and twang on radio, on TV, on podcasts. You might not have the opportunity to ever be on a podcast, but you lead this country if you need to lead this country, and you've got the enough passion and investment from yourself before anyone else, you will lead this country.
I think my question to you, President, at the time was to say, we get to see that quality is usually aligned with cost, right? If you're paying for it, you expect quality out of it, right? And what we have seen with our public schooling, we have 60 learners in one class or 50 learners in one class with one teacher. You can only play soccer or netball, right? There's no hockey, there's no cricket or rugby or any of that sort. For you to have options or how to develop yourself. And I found it that this government that we have for the past 30 years, they haven't really invested much into public schooling and really building more schools even. I don't know when the last time we cut the ribbon for a new school, either in Soweto or anywhere. But the population is growing every single year. You have more matriculants. You have even others who are leaving school, which are deemed unemployable, right? So here's my question was to say, how do we then fix this situation? How do we get to a point whereby we are able to change the narrative around public schooling and improve it using state power as we are in government, as a black government? Do we still blame the black government, or do we still blame the white monopoly capital, as they call it?
I think from my aspect, I think I mentioned this before, to say that there needs to be a level of investment in terms of education from the government side, right? I mean, we appreciate what has been happening so far. We appreciate NSFAS, we appreciate more schools being built and everything of the sort. But there needs to be more investment in terms of from the government side towards public schools and everything of the sort. Hence, I was speaking about the resources part, to say when you come from a school or rather of the Model C, they have your laptops, they have your iPads, they have access to all of those things. But other schools who are in rural areas, they don't have access to all of those things. And it becomes a challenge when you come to your university life, because everyone is expected to be able to use a laptop. You have to be taught, us who came from rural areas, we had to be taught that this is how you are able to use a laptop. So resources were limited in public schools. Resources are still limited in public schools. I mean, your textbooks are free. I mean, your teachers obviously are there for you to be able to teach you and everything of the sort. But when it comes to technology, especially in the 21st century, whereby we're moving very fast in terms of technology, we're moving very fast in terms of digital information and everything of the sort. So there needs to be some level of aspect of investment from the government side towards public schools, because it becomes a challenge when you go towards your university space, whereby it's a combination of all children, whether from your Model C's high schools, whether from your rural areas high schools and everything of the sort. So there needs to be investment from government sides towards public schools. Have we changed? Have there been any development so far? Absolutely. The development is commendable. However, we can't be able to do more than what we have right now.
Yeah, I think that the level of accountability from parents and just communities around schools in general is something that we need to look into. We can't always find one person or one institution called government just to hold accountable. If I look at a community where I come from, I can tell you now that if you and I were going to open a Shabin, would you open it in Senton, next door St. David's, or would you open it next in Mirolands, Soweto, next door Mirolands High? Where would you and I have a bigger turnover? And it's not the students that are buying, it's the parents in these communities that we call poor that are buying. I want to tell you a reality. St. David's Meritinenda, a laptop was not part of our stationery. They did not give me the laptop.
Yes.
The parents at such schools, and it's unfair to compare them to our parents, but I'll tell you the reality anyway. Parents at such schools ensure that there's an AstroTurf for hockey. It's not the school. It's not the school. There are different bodies. There's not only SGB that we know. There's an old boys committee. There's an old parents this. The parents are the ones that are running the tuck shops because it's important for them to frontline.
Parents are involved.
Parents are involved at all levels. And these parents, by the way, as much as they are in a better economic position, they can afford to. At the end of the day, when my mother's still applying for a job in Soweto, when she spends 3 years just idling in Soweto, someone needs to start waking our parents up to say that while you are waiting, you're not going to wait and play cards, kokas. You are going to go and make sure that the education that your kids are getting, the institution in its entirety, is serving your kids properly. We then start fighting gangsterism. Some of the students here can tell you that they are now in tertiary. They had to not only escape failing in class, even a break is a disaster in our public schools, simply because of gangsterism. And when you look at gangsterism, it comes from outside the gates of the school. And when you trace it properly, you'll see that it's ill discipline from the students and bad parenting from the parents. They all have this my attitude. Parents in our townships think that school is an opportunity for them to get away from their kids. They must just, your parents will wake you up, no mistake. Not for you to go study biology, but to get away. That's how tough it is. So if someone else was speaking, but he's speaking from a point of privilege. I just want to tell you that accountability is nothing to do with privilege. If our parents start coming into these schools, they'd be better disciplined, because for me to start speaking ill to another student in front of my mother, that thing is there's no chance it will happen. But the lack of our parents being present at these schools is going to be a problem. In my closing, at St. David's, I would go to the tuck shop. Dylan's mom is the one that's selling at the tuck shop. Come after school, she's the one bringing oranges on the field. So this woman is present everywhere. And when you look at our parents, we could. I'm not saying she's buying the oranges for the school. She is there to cut the oranges and give it to us halftime when we're playing soccer. Our parents are also present in the communities, but not in the schools.
I think hearing from both of you, what I'm starting to hear is that our education is not in a good shape. But then we are in the 21st century, so you can't even go back now. Now there's 21st century digital skills. There's something even called homeschooling after COVID. And my only worry is that by introducing this new curriculum, meanwhile we are failing with the mere basics. Is the youth of this country ready, President?
Absolutely. If you don't introduce it now, then it means we'll never be able to introduce it ever again. So there's no better time for us to be able to introduce the transformational system of the education than now. If we continue to wait, then really, it will never be transformed. And remember that we're competing here within the international community. There are some countries who are thriving and they're moving forward. And if we're still going to be hesitant as to should we start next year, then we will be left behind. So it's very much important for us to be able to start now. If I speak about my generation, I believe in my generation. I think our generation is very much active. We can be able to just catch things fast that way. If I can go to bed and say, comrades, let's go together, 1, 2, 3 is happening, students will come, young people will come. So young people are ready, young people can be able to catch up as well. I mean, even if you look at it, because when you speak about decolonization, it's a huge concept, but it can be achieved. Of course, it's going to take some time and everything of the sort. Like for instance, when I was doing my matric, there's some source-based that we did that was not there in the previous year. But it was not to say that we were not able to capture the source space and everything of the sort. Teachers were equipped to say that, okay, please go look at the source space from their unions and their workshops and go back and teach students. So we cannot therefore say that we can't start now to transform our educational system because we're still waiting on how we can be able to implement it or everything of the sort.
I think the question stems from the fact that you said there's no computers, there's no whatever, and these new skills demand that technological advancement, right? So as I'm asking, looking at the current state of affairs in public schooling without less improvement on technology, are we ready to really take the opportunity? And also with learners not being able to read for meaning at the grade 7, are we ready mentally and resource-wise?
We are ready, and of course, resource-wise, it's a debatable situation. And I want to say this aspect because it doesn't take one person for us to be able to transform the entire thing. Many people need to take part in it. Parents need to take part in it. Yeah. Students themselves need to take part in it. Educators need to also play a critical role, and government also need to play a critical role. Yes, there are some aspects that we can say we're lacking in this aspect of resources like government. I mentioned before, lack of resources and everything of the sort. But when it comes to transforming our education, everybody has a pivotal role for them to be able to play for us to transform. Because if you don't start now, like I said, then we'll never be able to start.
Nhlanhla, maybe homeschooling is the solution. Parents they're forced to be with their parents. They're going to be asking their parents questions about question papers. Do you think South Africa is ready for that, to have their kids?
Yeah, no, South Africa is ready. South Africa is a country that is always ready, guys. You must check. South Africa always wins. Whenever you drop a seed in a soil called South Africa, a big trees come from that type of action. So I'm then saying, homeschooling. I've seen some kids who went through homeschooling. There are pros and cons, sure. But it works because you are then able as a parent, not as a system, to say that, my boy is actually good when it comes to biology, because homeschooling requires serious presence of parents. You can't just send your kids to homeschooling because otherwise you are sending them to another school. Homeschooling has a lot to do with the home, right? So you then, and I like it because You identify the weaknesses and strengths of your kids. You can start helping them invest in their own strengths at an early age. You don't depend on the system to raise your kids. You don't depend on the system to identify the kids' talents. You, as a parent, you've got the best interest for your kids more than a total stranger that you can call a teacher or a stranger that you can call a moderator. So I love homeschooling because it draws parents and families closer to the entire process of your child growing up in education. Because it doesn't mean there's no education there, but it means the education is happening with all of us here. And there's a parent who works on radio, by the way. The child did homeschooling for a few years. She said that the amount of education she got and received because of how homeschooling required her to be present in the journey, it was just amazing for her too. So what does it do? It also addresses the lack of education that our parents actually had, because with the traditional education, which I'm not completely against, it's important for the country. Traditional education says that you must go, come back, you leave your parents behind. So homeschooling, there's a lot of involvement of parenting, which I love with all my heart, because my biggest pillar of anything, doesn't matter what I talk about, if you can get it right in the family, you can get it right in the community and therefore the country.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you. Fees Must Fall, 2014. Some of us were there. Free education. And I remember at the time we bent tires. Some went to jail. Some got promoted there in parliament. But as time went by, the more things remained the same. And over the past few years, we have seen a lot of that. Student protests in every campus. Every now and then, there was a bit of hope that, here's the youth standing up, only to be managed or rather neutralized along the way. Do you have faith in youth leadership in this country?
Absolutely, I have faith. And I think it's important that you mentioned that not a lot has changed from Fees Must Fall. And when you speak about Fees Must Fall, it was just a continuation of what the June 16 generation started. So the Fees Must Fall generation as well was still continuing the fight for free, quality and decommodified education. It still continues. You look at the generation from the Vets Asina Mali protests, they were all also still continuing the free, quality and decommodified education fight. So the fight is still continuing, and the revolution is still continuing as well. It's just to say that there's the struggles and challenges, of course, here and there. For one of the challenges is the fact that not everyone is at the same level of conscientization as everyone else. Not everyone sees it as a possibility to have free education. As much as for us, we're able to go into classes. In fact, in our protests, when we did the protest like this year, we went to some classes and lecturers and said, let's go join the revolution. We're in the fight for free, quality and decommodified education. Not everyone believed in the concept. So hence I say that there's a need for a level of consciousness, because not everyone believes in the mission that our generation has. So we cannot therefore say that, let's just go out there, and fight. Because for us to be able to be united within the fight, I must be able to convince Nhlanhla why is it important to have free education. I must be able to convince everyone in this room why is it important for us to have quality and decommodified education. But if not everyone is in the same mission, then not everyone can be able to fight in the same way. I mean, the types of mobilization, I don't believe that young people must be mobilized. I think young people must be able to mobilize themselves. And if young people can be able to mobilize themselves, it starts with the concept of consciousness. If young people are conscious, then most definitely they can be able to mobilize themselves. There's no need for me to come and say, no, let's go to the ground. It's important for the other sister to come in, you understand? And it also goes to the fact that there's a problem of relating, because when some people don't relate to the struggles that you are facing, they don't want to come in and join into your struggle, because why should I join you? I'm already registered. Why should I join you? I'm already accommodated. So it's those challenges.
Somebody will say it's a rhetoric, Nhlanhla, that once in a while, comrades want to win elections on campus, they figure out the issue, they scream, they bend tires, then they become presidents. And it just becomes a rhetoric. The same way that the people have lost faith in the ANC, even in the EFF, for a party like that to get 9%. People are getting to a part where they feel that this language of liberation, decolonization, revolution is just a rhetoric to keep the elite or to give some people rewards of power. But do you feel young people still trust in these narratives?
I don't think there's anyone listening that can disagree with what I'm about to say. In the history of human beings, in the history, recorded history of us humans, there's no revolution that was ever led by old people.
No.
Ever. And it will never be. So I have full confidence in young people that they can, when the time is right. Let's speak about one of the most famous young people today in this continent, from Burkina Faso, the president. Right. Traore, when you look at him, it's not his intelligence that we are excited with. It's not by his own grace that he's the president. It's because the environment allowed him. The time was right. When Chris Hani, at the age of 27, led the entire country and even bases outside this country, that all over Chris Hani.
Yes.
The politics of Chris Hani. If you look at the age that they achieved, what they achieved, it was an average age between the age of 25 and 30. If you look at what an average 25-year-old to a 30-year-old is doing today, 2025, 2026, moving forward, we are smoking humbly, and these are the realities of the country. We are on social media. Whenever you have something to contribute, you think by telling Facebook you've contributed to the world. I don't know who lied to us to think that Facebook is the world or Twitter is the world. We don't really go down into real communities, touch real lives in real homes and real families, even when you have the resources to. So I have full faith in young people. Once the time is right, and umoya, meaning the universe, has conspired in our favor as a country, and we say that this is our time, similar to what happened pre-94, it was our time as a country. That's why Mandela could rise. That's why Chris Hani could rise. That's why Mama Winnie Mandela could rise. But now in 2026, we've got middle class that speaks English, and whenever the Gogos of Soweto want to say something, you guys must wait in full English that the Gogos might not even understand. We don't feel the same pain in this country. Once we start feeling pain, and my biggest wish is that South Africa must feel pain. South Africa must bleed. Again, that's our biggest reason to unite. We'll never hold hands peacefully in this country if we don't feel the same pain. She just said it as well in one of the things she was saying, that we are too much, we are everywhere. As soon as we start speaking about education, then there's some students from other faculties that will say that we don't resonate with that revolution in us.
Because I would agree with you that definitely it was Chris Hani who said, my fear is that our leaders will emerge as elites and our people will continue to be poor while we are drinking expensive whiskeys and driving around in flashy cars. And we see that happening today, that the most remarkable movement of our people, today the brand has become that you have money. If you have that brand in you, they think that you are in government and you are chowing. If you are a young person who is in politics, automatically you are assumed that you are well connected and you are chowing, rather than you being known for the impact that you have in society. But I'm going to come to speak about social media. And what I've seen in social media as of recent, and I think maybe we can speak about this as young people, you have a lot of false information, misleading information on social media. And also it's good that it keeps our young people together, engaged across all racial lines. And it has become a very useful tool for South Africa to unite the youth, right? But how do we then effectively use social media to champion these interests, or even to debunk the lies that should you rather, what would be the best way to do it? How do we then use social media to educate young people on whatever your theories that you have, but also to debunk them, those theories that some people might have to say they are lying, here's the truth. How do we make sure social media becomes a free space where people can really learn and not be misled?
I think social media plays a very pivotal role in the revolution. If you look at how we're able to mobilize young people, it's through your Twitter, it's through your Instagram, and it's through your Facebook and everything of the sort. However, at some particular point in time, we must be able to transform social media activists into ground soldiers, into ground activists, for us to be able to, you can be able to tweet and say that free, quality and decommodified education, but come to the ground as well when we say let us us go and march, let us go and protest, let us go and do 1, 2, and 3. We understand. There's a lot of voices within social media, and I think young people are able to express themselves on those platforms because there's no one who's looking at you like and saying, okay, can you account on 1, 2, and 3? So it's free, and I think it's for everyone as well. We have what we call passive audiences, we have what we call active audiences, and it's important for young people to become active audiences because there's also false information. It's easier for me to just wake up in the morning and just tweet, comrades 1, 2, 3 has happened, and it's up to you to just also be able to ensure that you look at the information provided to you and you do your own research. You can't that when there's a particular post that is being made, then you run against those particular posts. So it's just to say that social media plays a very pivotal role in the revolution. We must acknowledge that. We must commend that. However, we must be able to transform people from being social media activists into ground soldiers and ground activists as well.
Nhlanhla, but how do we guard it against misinformation as well? How do we guard it against such?
I honestly believe that social media is a product of
The West.
Not only the West, but our system in this country.
What?
Our political system that we subscribe to, what is it?
Democracy.
Democracy. The way Naksai Fateling Kating, I want to I think South Africa, like many other African countries, we honestly need a dictator that loves his people. That's my belief. When you look at countries like Russia, do you think social media flies? As long as there's a TikTok, it just comes. And people are TikToking.
So you support censorship?
I support, it's tough to have this conversation because if you are a parent, do you allow your kids to watch porn? Or do you just say that, no, it's the thing of the world, they must continue at the age of 7? Why do you censor your kids?
Okay.
It's very important. Sure. Why must you protect students in high school? It's important because they're not, you can't expose them to the evils of the world and still expect them to be students. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I mean?
Sure.
So I'm then saying social media. I do not think that people who come up with social media and the laws that allow social media really understand social media. There's people who have been lied about on social media. There's so much propaganda on social media that some of the people that are sitting here with degrees and MBAs and what, they fall for those things. So what was an ordinary person in Soweto who can't even think beyond the reach of their own hand? Once they start hearing that the Pakistans are selling fake chips, our kids are dying, and the first time we hear it is social media. Mm-hmm. I live in Soweto in Naledi where kids are dying. When I look at it on Facebook, look at it in real life, it's two different things. Mm-hmm. And we start having an outcry of being anti-foreign. And President, I must tell you, this is the first time on this platform I'll tell you that, again, our education system is failing us because for the fact that we don't know what's going on in Botswana, you and I, in Lesotho, you and I, will remain to see those people as dark people. But we are taught about America. When these people come here, or Tambo, we give them positive energy. But someone from Lesotho, we give them negative energy. So again, it's social media that's responsible for teaching us about our own brothers and sisters from this continent.
But isn't that the part where you say you support censorship to some extent of social media? Shouldn't people choose what they want to view, and shouldn't there just be an open space, or should you regulate it?
So I'm saying regulated. President, my example of a 7-year-old, as a parent, I can't allow my kids to watch porn. I'm censoring their phone.
Yeah, apart from porn.
No, it's an extreme example because life is extreme.
Yes.
People kill each other because of the social media
Exactly.
nonsense.
Yeah.
People kill each other. People ban a house of a councillor in Soweto because on social media they had said, on WhatsApp groups they had said, not in real life. And then we all then hold our heads to say, but the group said, but Twitter said, but... So I'm then saying we can't allow for these things to go without accountability. And the first step for accountability for me is that regulation, censorship. Someone must hold them accountable. We can't allow Twitter to tell us about us. We must tell Twitter about us. I don't think one could But with if you have enough budget and you are friends with Elon Musk, you through Twitter can tell us about you. You can even condition me. I can even really go look into the mirror and say, people from Soweto, are we really hooligans? You can push a propaganda hashtag, Sowetans hooligans, for 6 months, and then the middle class and these people and everyone, they start even saying that so much that I even start believing it myself. Then I even start questioning my own moral standing in society, my own leadership in Soweto, and say, Nhlanhla, are we really that bad?
President?
I want to come in and say,
yes, regulate or just open it up for everyone to
I want to
consume.
say, yeah, it should be open up to everyone to consume. It depends. I want to say again, there's a difference between passive and active audiences as well, right? Social media plays a pivotal role in mobilizing young people for the revolution. There's so many people, I want to make an example. There's so many people who didn't know what was happening in Congo. There's so many people who didn't know what was happening in Swaziland. They only got to know about it because of a TikToker that is giving them some particular information as well. You understand? And we must be able to outline that there is a fact, there is a challenge, that young people are not activated or motivated for them to read. So a number of our peers, they don't assume or subscribe to reading. You understand? So most of their time, they spend it to social media, right? So we cannot take away the positive role the social media plays in terms of educating young people. And also, there are rules that are there in social media. If you don't want your child to subscribe in a particular...
President.
Listen.
Rules.
If you don't want your child, listen. If you don't want your child to subscribe in a particular content, you can be able to go and click there to say, this is the kind of content that my child, I don't want them to subscribe to it. There's social media and there's broadcasting news and everything of the sort. Broadcasting news is where information is just given to you. Social media is driven by the people. If in your For You page, you are able to, if you keep on watching issues of unreliable information, that's what social media is going to give you back, right? Yes. But then if you keep on watching someone who's giving you information, if you keep on watching content creators who are giving you information about our democracy, who are giving you information about what is happening in Congo, that is what social media is going to give you back. So social media gives you what you give it. You understand? When it comes to broadcasting and news and everything, then you cannot be able to rebut. When someone in the news is telling you that the president has flown out of the country, you can't go back and disagree with that person who's presenting to you. But social media really is for the people, driven by the people.
But here's the thing, before Nhlanhla, we had a doctor in this country who was supposedly a doctor. He was sending medication to people. Some of you remember that doctor, right? And people were literally clicking and buying that medication, right? Until it was discovered that he's rogue. But people who came to the prophet said, hey, they are saying that I'm working these pills. I feel better. So how do we then be able to detect which is harmful, which is not? And then even though after we have done that, do we still have a right to say, do we still feel that people still have a right to choose for themselves, even though there may not be a popular narrative, but Dr. Mama Matthew gave me the pills that are working. Whether they are signed off or not.
Okay, maybe let me just get into my English. Yeah. Now listen, when you start saying censorship and regulation, I don't think we are speaking about the same thing. So let's clarify this. Yeah, I'm saying let's regulate, because in regulation, you then can be held accountable. But when you censor, it doesn't exist because we censored it. You can't see it, correct? So I'm then saying people who use social media, today you can't hold me accountable for saying that, Cyril Ramaphosa, hey, what, chula, so this. I can just speak and people hide behind these accounts without being held accountable. People's lives get damaged, guys, in real life. People get misled for real. It's like religion. These churches, they must have regulation. You can't make people eat grass. Again, I told you about chlorophyll and photosynthesis. The priest doesn't even know half of those things, or the pastor, whoever it is. And there's no accountability, President. Yeah. So I think let's not speak censorship. Let's speak regulation. Everything must be regulated. There must be a standard in which you must give input to social media in terms of content, and there must be a standard in which output comes back to you in terms of content.
Okay, I don't want to hold the team waiting for too long. Hi guys, you are still here. I'm going to give the floor. The mic is right there. If you have a question, you have a comment, this is your best time to shine. Feel free, you are home, you are young people, I want to hear your thoughts. You have heard two speakers here speaking brilliantly on this subject. I'm sure you have your own views. Go for it. Question number 1. There you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Lesego, right?
Yes.
Okay.
First and foremost, my name is Lesego Moropa, and I'm also one of the youth here in South Africa, and also a student at the University of Witwatersrand doing my last year as an incoming educator. So this topic also really impacts my line of career. So my point of interest in this discussion, and I do believe that it is very crucial in the transformation of the South African education, is English as a universal language, and do we blame the system or the parents because of the crisis? From the panelists now, the responses that grabbed my attention was when they spoke about language and intelligence being intertwined. And Nhlanhla, I remember referencing from Russia. In Russia, they are using their own language to communicate. China, they are using their language to communicate and also learn. Now, my question is, are we ready as South Africa for that transformation, considering that we have 12 languages, number 1? And are we ready for the decolonization of English, considering the stereotype that comes with English as a language of heaven, or rather as a universal language? For instance, even now, we are in this podcast, we are communicating in English. Why don't we as a South Africa say, hey, we can have, we have 12 languages, but we can have out of the 12, 1 language that we can communicate? Is it also going to be fair? Those are my questions I would love to submit. Thank you.
Okay, President, I will allow you on that one. Since you're even now speaking English, and I'm sure your kids are speaking English on Twitter as well, do we forgive English and just continue with it? Or do you still feel that it needs to be somehow but downgraded and elevate African languages? And which one? Venda, Tsonga, Setswana, Kunzima?
I think Lisego's question is very crucial, right? It's particularly in South Africa. But for my aspect, I think we can be able to group languages, right? Our languages are not that much different from each other. If you look at Siswati, Sizulu, Sixhosa, Ndebele, those are Nguni languages, you understand? If you look at Sotho, Sepedi, so you see, so our languages are actually not that much different from each other. So when you are a child in KZN, you are doing Sizulu, you can be able to incorporate isiSotho as part of your curriculum, so that you can be able to have a multilingual individual, you understand? I have a lot of friends who are actually multilingual. My friends who come from Pretoria, they're very much multilingual, and they know a lot of languages. They can be able to communicate and everything of the sort. It doesn't mean now you must be able to know all 12 languages of South Africa. However, our languages are not that much different from one another. Do I believe that we should be able to come back and use our own languages as Africa? Of course, absolutely. I mean, we should be able to continue to use our own languages, communicate using our own languages. If you are doing Sisotho, then you must be able to incorporate isiZulu as part of your curriculum. If you understand what I'm saying. So it's to say that there's not much difference in terms of our languages. We must be able to incorporate them and be able to ensure that we don't only rely on English. English is not a super language. You must be able to use our own mother language.
Nhlanhla, I feel like 76 we are fighting against Africans. Now you are fighting against English. And my question is, since we are a special case as a country of 11, 12 official languages, isn't by default that English will be supreme? Because, I mean, if Botswana want their language to be over, but the Zulus want to be their language to be, I mean, even at the ranking, if you speak Sotho after 4, they tell you the Sotho is Kulungal after 4. So we still have our tribal issues as well. So who will take the lead in these languages? Setsonga, Setswana, don't we just take English based on our special circumstances?
Look, we need to be honest, Lesego. You know, something I love about Afrikaans people, which we can't accept generally as black people. When you love yourself, it doesn't mean that you hate the next person. When you speak and prioritize Sesotho, it doesn't mean you hate Sizulu. This country is a country made up of nations, the Sotho nation, the Zulu nation. You are saying that the millions of people that are Sotho speaking must be subjected to Zulu if we have to choose. Why can't all of them be a medium of instruction in an institution such as Wits University? Because you can then go back to a concentrated Sotho province called the Free State and be a doctor there. So that when a young person comes, bar uwile, she fell during break. And then I can say, instead of saying, what are you feeling? What are your vital conditions? Ngwana batho vital condition at 7.
Sure.
But if I can say, ngwana ka keng mo yutlwang, ebare ku utlwa ka re mo mra wa tsebe ho na le eng, it's better articulated. So it doesn't mean that when we say prioritize the language, it's against another. How's about we all take them to the sky? That's the best I can say when it comes to language, intelligence, and taking this country forward.
I want to make an example. My background in terms of language, my home language is isiZulu. But when I go to TVET University, it was compulsory for me to do Sisotho. You understand? So that I can be able to understand also the other languages. So what's the need for me to continue doing isiZulu? Because I already know it. So it was therefore pivotal and important for me to explore the other languages.
Yeah.
Someone who has a background in this particular language, they explore a different language as well.
And my other point that I want to say to that is that we in South Africa think that Gauteng province is the mother of all provinces. This very small province, this one.
We are arrogant.
We are very arrogant. Even on social media, traditional media, we'll cover what happens in Soweto. What happens in Tanzania? It's got a population equal the size. What's happening in the Western Cape? In townships in the Western Cape? I can bet you there's some townships that us woke blacks and whites in here, we don't even know exists.
True.
Simply because they're not in Gauteng.
I was in PE, there was a new township that I heard about, the Cape County.
Exactly.
Because when I think of a township in Eastern Cape, I think of Tanzania or whatever. But there's one in PE. But anyway, let's go to the second question for the sake of time. If any of you have a comment or a question, feel free. Your name and then shoot.
Thank you very much. My name is Nkateko Modise. I serve as a speaker of UJ Student Parliament. And thank you for the great discussions. I just want to engage this issue. One of the biggest issues that we have in basic education is access to education. Why I'm saying it's access to education is because when you have to, during the administration process, or rather during the process in which our parents apply for their kids to choose schools or whatsoever, there's a lot of backlog. And that simply, that itself indicates that by the beginning of the academic year, our classes are overcrowded. And you mentioned this issue. In university, we always say that our best solution is to ensure that, okay, if I applied for accounting and the class only takes 6,000 students for accounting, we can also go online. What then becomes a discussion for basic education? Are we saying that our high school students are not ready for online education? What is the best solution? Because we've seen that building 2 schools cannot be a solution to the backlog that we have in terms of admitting the learners in high school. Also very important, the backlog that is there and the overcrowding that happens in our schools or high schools is also one of the issues that impact the quality of education that is there. Because in private schools, when you're 13, the teacher is able to give attention to each learner individually. So, and now in schools where we come from, they can't give attention to individuals, to 74 learners in one classroom. So then this also speaks to the quality of education, and furthermore, it creates a level at which our students would be able to bank classes, and from banking classes, we are able to also drop out. This is one of the issues I want us to speak to, dropouts. How do we then address the issues of dropouts? Because it speaks to the crisis of education in South Africa. How do you address dropouts? Because every dropout is a count of unemployment.
For sure.
So we need to address
Brilliant, that, yeah.
President, you had the question clearly. How do we deal with those ones who didn't make it through the 30% pass mark of our metric? And at the same time, then do we open the public schooling even to include homeschooling as well as an option for those parents who can't get their kids through the school?
I mean, I think there's different perspective, and I think they've been allowed even before by Nhlanhla to say that we can explore different ways of being able to do schooling. I mean, there's homeschooling that can be one of the options. Also, traditional schooling, I highly prioritize, or I see traditional schooling is important, because I think it's important for young people to be able to exist together as the community. We understand. Yes. However, there's a challenge of dropouts and everything of this sort. It's a reality in our community, and there's many challenges that come into it. It's the challenges of inequality, challenges of substance abuse that young people today find themselves experiencing, or anything of this sort. It's a challenge of the number, like I said, access. You understand what I'm saying? So it's of course not going to be easy for the teacher to identify that the Siho is not in class, because there's 60 of us here, you understand? Hence, it's important for us to explore the options of homeschooling. Hence, it's important for us to explore the option of being able to ensure that more schools are built for us to be able to accommodate more people or more young people to be able to come into the education system as well.
Nhlanhla, somebody said to me, the reason why we have 30% pass mark is that the way to drive numbers. So I don't have a lot of young people failing, and next thing you have a double class being double numbers. So that the 30% is not necessarily intentional in empowering the learner. It's basically about the school running the stats, so that way we can have a lot of people getting through the system. But the way they end up becomes a problem, right? So if you failed on the first step, definitely you're gonna fail on your second step. Do you think, as he said, that education in a sense in South Africa should also, maybe we should build more schools, maybe we should make it more digital? What is the solution to it? Let us talk about even those ones who are unemployable. How do we help them? You only have grade 10, you dropped out of school. How do we help you?
First, let's define dropout. With my very limited intelligence, dropout is not only those who did not make it through high school, even those with a matric, because you need to drop out. Think of it as a train or as a passage. It's got a start point not even grade 1. Even before that, early childhood development, we call it crèche, nursery schools, etc. To get a basic degree is not the end of the process. You can still go to where the president is and go further, qualify further. Yeah, so if you leave because you've graduated at a certain point, we might not call you dropout. But graduating grade 7 and don't go to high school, is that really called graduating? It can't be. Graduating grade 12 and not being able to go further and study because of excess, financial excess, or because of vets can only take 6,000 out of the 86,000 people that applied, and you find yourself in the township corner. For me, that's also dropping out. A person that dropped out at grade 10 and a person that dropped out at grade 12. Grade 12 is not a sign of academic
They dropped
success.
out of the schooling system.
They
basically.
dropped out of the education system. They dropped out because of they just couldn't go on for their own reasons. So I'm then saying, there'll always be more dropouts than those who graduate. So again, we must visit this education system and ask ourselves if we've got a net to catch them and rehabilitate them from an education point of view. What do we do with these ones? Because you are then saying that after you get your degree and you marry your perfect couple and you've got a perfect family, us who did not have a net that dropped out are going to look at you as our homemade economy. Because my kids must also eat. That plasma you bought will not survive. 6 months is too much. We'll get into that house. I'm making an example here. So what do we then do? We must then have, again, what the president, I think, is trying to achieve with Bosia Kolisi. What do you call that thing he's doing? National dialogue. We then need to have a real national dialogue. I'm not undermining this one of Bosia Kolisi.
Another CODESA.
We honestly needed to have another CODESA and ask real question. Why is the Indian community able to be united, regardless of, because the Indians went through the same thing that the Coloureds went through, same time and place. South Africa, post-94, is time and place. The black communities went through the same time and place. But why is 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later, why are they thriving? Because it's not easy to pick up, and you can say, no, the Indian community, their population is small. Versus who? The Afrikaans community. Versus who? The colored community. So I'm not saying versus the black community. But why can't we learn from each other? Because CODESA is not, people run away from it because they think it's an opportunity to hold you accountable so you can go to jail. It's an opportunity to learn. Yeah. Guys, how did you go through COVID? Let's say COVID CODESA. Then we can, our traditional healers from they can tell you that we plant this and we plant it this way. They can even teach the fancy technology, GMO, commercial farming, about farming, because we started with the farming first.
Okay, thanks, my brother. Sure. For the sake of time, and Chiya still has the mic, I'm gonna go for a last round of questions. Please, okay, you have 2 hands there. There's the another hand. Is there another hand? Okay, Chauke, 3 hands. Another hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the last round. Walala wasala. Okay, perfect.
May I ask this question, Nhlanhla? You just
Raise your hand. I'm kidding.
you know now of protocol. May I ask this question? You just reminded me by mentioning COVID, actually. Can we talk about education as empowerment? And I wonder, do you think we're doing enough in our education system? And specifically also when we look at the system we live in, with the laws that we have in this country, are our laws empowering us enough as young people and as individuals to make our own decisions? So let me make an example, because you mentioned COVID. Why did we have laws that told us we can do this or we can't do this with our own bodies? Why aren't I allowed to be empowered enough to decide how I live my life? Even now, I've been seeing over the past couple of months what's been happening with a tobacco bill. Will it be banned? Will it not be banned? If I want to smoke 10 packets a day, why should a law tell me that is wrong? So are our laws educating us enough to be able to say, these are the dangers, this is what is good about this, now you make your own decision? What do you think about that?
You know, for the fact that such a brilliant question is asking if the law should be educating us enough, we must know we've got a country with a collapsed education system. Now we're relying on the law to educate us. So
Dictatorship 101.
Yeah, so President, I think that it comes a time where we can't allow, again, from a regulation point of view, we need to regulate what tobacco, how it advertises itself, because once it captures the minds of kids in high school and they start smoking, we then have to project and look at the country in 40 years' time. Then the pharmaceuticals are going to benefit big time because everyone has now cancer, lung cancer. And what happens moving forward, we're giving birth to kids that have been normalized through their eyes to say that smoking is okay. And then their smoking doesn't start at high school, it starts at primary school because it's part of their normal. So I really believe in a society, in a country where there's so much regulation, not censorship, not that you can't move. There must be regulation because Lux in Soweto is influential and influences millions of young people. If Lux then starts saying that school is not cool, do you know how many young people are not going to go to school? Mm-hmm. So at some point I must have laws that guide me so that alone, that if Lux says we are all banning the malls because I'm unhappy, I'm inciting violence, then people die, then who holds who accountable? So we can't have a lawless society as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I think the question is more of like the example of a tobacco, right? They want to ban it, they don't want to ban it, so would you support the idea to say you can only smoke, you can only buy 1 pack a day? That's the law of the country. President, you can't go beyond 2 packs a day.
Let me give you an example.
Will that be regulation enough for you?
So I think balance that regulation. Go kill yourself, not in the presence of anyone else. Let me tell you, because there's then ripple effects. Yeah. Young people are learning. If you are my father, that's normalized because my dad can't do wrong. If he smokes too much weed, I'm going to smoke weed at some point. I'm going to take the stompies and finish them off. I'm going to take the beers when you pass out and finish them off. These are the realities of life. You know, in the townships, our grannies smoke this thing called snuff ntsu. That thing is tobacco and people underplay that thing.
But even the Madlusis like it.
No. That's marketing. That thing is marketing. So in the townships, it's unfortunate, my brother, that you've got young people addicted to drugs that are legal. When I say young people, early childhood development. Yeah. Everything is panado sirapo. Kids, you know, we can't even tolerate our own kids. When the sun sets and they start crying, it's natural for kids to cry. Panado syrup, Harlemensis, Armand, Jamaica. Like, as a black child, you just start being given all these things. Yeah, and we just get intoxicated from as soon as we hit this world to at the end. Because in between is lean, we mix cough mixture with Sprite, and you graduate to Zol mixed with cat, and then it's Nyaupe, and then it's when you have a better paying job is now cocaine. When you lose your job it's cat again, and then eventually when you grow old it's snape. You can't live your life like that. We've got a serious problem in the black communities.
My leader, President, on the issue of empowerment, our education has so many graduates, but don't have any entrepreneurs. We are all waiting for a company to open those doors. Why aren't we building companies? We have NYDA that was giving people 50,000, 100,000. There's SMMEs of government that we're giving people also funds to start these businesses. So this time you can't blame government. Isn't our education somehow streamlined to make you a servant than to literally become innovative as a young person to start finding creative ways? I mean, it's sad when we hear that there's unemployed graduates or unemployed doctors, but so many people are sick. Why don't you open your own whatever? I'm not sure what's the story or what are the requirements to open your own practice where you can heal people in the township for 150 or 200 and make it accessible to those.
Yeah.
Isn't that maybe we have this dependency syndrome that Mandela told us to get an education, we get it, now we want jobs. I don't even creating ones. And your thoughts?
No, empowerment. I totally agree. Hence, we speak about the need for us to be able to transform our education. Because if you look at our education, it trains us and teaches us to be workers. You understand? It doesn't teach us to create opportunities. But also at the same time, I do want to say, we can't all be entrepreneurs. Let's be honest on the conversation.
But there's none now,
wait. Let's look at these aspects. We can't all be entrepreneurs, right? There's different ways we can be able to look on how we can be able to generate economy, right? It's not always through entrepreneurship. We must be able to recognize other talents as well that exist within our generation, young people. You look at people who are able to do hair. That thing is most of the times looked down or limited. If you go to other countries, international countries, that thing is generating a lot of money. Even in South Africa, as a matter of fact, a lot of our young people, we do our hair to people who are actually not from South Africa. You understand? When we have a lot of young people who can actually be able to do let's combine, see, you do know how to do hair, let's do something, let's start something. You understand what I'm saying? So the education system does not train our young people to be able to start their own things. And I'm going to be honest, there's no opportunities that are just waiting out there for people to graduate and they go out there to grab them. You understand? It is upon us as young people to start to create these opportunities. It is upon us as young people to start to create a legacy economic growth. You understand? Because it's not like there's any kind of economic liberation that was passed down to us. You understand what I'm saying? Only political freedom was gotten, never economic freedom. So there was never economic legacy that was passed down from our parents as to start in. You understand? So there needs to be an economic legacy that needs to start with us from the education that we are supposed to be receiving. So the education firstly needs to transform to train us to be able to start and create our own opportunities as well. And we must also be able to explore as well, not to only recognize those professional degrees to say you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, and that's where it ends. We have a lot of other careers that people can be able to explore. And as a matter of fact, some young people are already starting it. If you go to your townships, they're already doing your brandings. They're already doing your car washes. But those things are not actually recognized as real economic growth. And actually, as a matter of fact, it is economic growth.
Yeah, but it's quick cash. I want things that are transformational, you know. I would love to see black business and really thriving, not just to gather with the president to get funding. Obagwe, go for it.
I just want to add that beyond just the curriculum and decolonization of education, there's a social issue, environmental social issue that comes with education as well. And I think that's the problem with the classism of this country, that we are here in Johannesburg and talking about the middle class and the low class. Far away from here, there are forgotten people. There are learners who are walking kilometers to get this education. We still have pit toilets, 7-year-olds drowning in pit toilets. We talk about laptops, but we can't deliver textbooks yet. And yeah, as you, Lux, you talked about gangsterism. And I think the reason why the government doesn't take heed too much to these issues or just look beyond them is they see the few that went that conquered this phase, that got through the education system, and they look at you standing on stage and say, yeah, well, if they could get through it, why can't you? For everyone that got through, there are 6 that are left behind, and they cannot use you guys as an exception. I think my question in general is to what you said. Do you think it's fair to say if you have enough drive and dedication, you can make it through? Do you think it's fair for everyone to, in that
President,
sense?
I think it was you who said that.
Yes.
You have the drive. Now you're the president of VETs, not just any university. VETs. It gives you the edge. I'm kidding, but
does,
so you
right.
think the drive is everything that you need and motivation. Not necessarily coming to terms with the fact that there is socio-economic issues that actually dictates as well.
Yeah, I mean, we can't shy away from the fact that there's socio-economic issues that exist within society, you understand? But I do not entirely think that those socio-economic issues that exist can be the hindrance in terms of us being able to do progress, you understand? When I come from in my community, rural areas, really, those issues actually still do exist. You have to walk a long way for you to be able to get to your school. You still have issues of access to textbooks, even access to enough desks. Some of us cannot be able to, you understand what I'm saying? So those issues of resources, those issues of the socio-economic issues do still exist. However, we cannot be able, or rather, I want to say that they are not the total hindrance of us being able to move forward. You understand what I'm saying? If you look at the generation of Fees Must Fall, if you look at the generation of 1976, each and every generation had challenges. You understand what I'm saying? So our main goal is to be able to overcome those challenges. Our main goal is to be able to ensure that we find different ways of being able to move forward. Because if we take our entire shift and focus on those socio-economic issues as well, and don't think that there's a possibility for us to transform, then we won't be able to move forward. We must acknowledge that we have these challenges. I mean, we do have those challenges. I had the challenge of myself for me to be able to get to school. But I cannot therefore say that, it takes me 5 hours to get to school, so I won't go to school. I'll drop out. You understand what I'm saying? I cannot therefore say that, you know what, I don't have a textbook, so we cannot be able to share it. We have issues of being able to use a candlelight and everything of the sort. There are challenges. Each and every generation has challenges. But each generation has the mission and responsibility to overcome those challenges.
Well noted. I'm running out of time. We are going to 2 hours now, and this was not the plan. So I'm going to ask you, please, keep it short and simple. You are the last one, I think. Who was the last one? If I'm checking, it was you. It was, no.
We said it like 1, 2.
And there was one hand there. Okay, okay. 1, 2, quickly, in a second, 30 seconds. Go.
All right. So mine is not more of a question, but it's about a perception around education. As we know about higher education, we look at VETs being the institution and TVET colleges being like by the way. So how then do we work around making sure that we destigmatize the perception that is around TVET colleges to make them more appealing for people to be able to go there? Because not everyone wants to be a theorist.
Danta, quickly.
I think you don't want to
Oh,
take
you know
this
what?
question-
Actually, yes,
Yeah,
take
sure.
them and you wrap
Yeah.
up with them.
Sure.
Your name,
Yeah.
then your question. 30 seconds, my brother. It was who was there? I was pinned and come on, time.
Quickly.
Share the mic. I had him, Chan. Yeah, Chauke.
Yes, my name is Singita Chauke. So mine is not a question but a comment when you talk about education and our languages. I'm Tsonga.
Yeah.
Some would be saying, let's see it much. So the thing is very difficult. Now we have Floyd Chibambu struggling there. June 16, there was a lady who was speaking, who was Tsonga. A guy just came in and was like, this one is Ishangan. And then we have Papa Penny. Papa Penny is not far from my village. In Parliament, if you can start speaking Tsonga, even if they can interpret for him, but the fact that it's Shangan is a problem. So this thing of language and education, for us as Tsonga people, it's going to be very difficult. That's why we might as well say, let's focus on English once. Because if you are Zulu and I'm Tsonga, I'm telling you, we have a serious problem about this thing.
Yeah.
And another thing for this NYDA and
SMMEs.
yeah, I'm in business. I'm 30 years old. I don't have a post-matric qualification. I've been self-employed until now. But I've never got help from this NYDA, this other for funding or any of those sorts. But it's very difficult. If you don't know any comrade who's in NYDA to help you connect you somewhere, it will be very difficult for you. So I think let me just stop here.
You must be friends of comrades yourself also. But anyway, I'm gonna that will be the last question, and then who
No, we'll just
I
share
see you
them.
already.
Yeah,
Go
we'll
for
just
it.
share them. My brother, think of it this way. If Papa Penny goes to the doctor in serious pain, if he failed to articulate himself in English, prepared speech, how is he going to articulate himself in English? You see, you have an advantage of articulating yourself in English. That's why it's easy to say that, no, let's forget Tsonga and just focus on English. And I'm not attacking you, I'm then saying there's millions of other Tsongas, not only in this country, whatever Tsonga extends to outside the borders of this country, that can't speak this English thing. We can't then deny them to be doctors, because academia suggests that these institutions say that an exam is coming. If we can't have a question paper in Tsonga, then we are saying excess for a Tsonga speaking person who was born Tsonga, they can't be doctors. You must just be limited to the pain, and then we Sotus will solve it, because we are the believing Sotu must also be given a chance in these institutions. So we must never think like that, my brother. Nah, for no, you can.
President?
I think in conclusion, Tsongas for me are amongst the smartest people on this continent. Why? Because even if you look at language, ability to learn people's languages as a measure of intelligence, Tsongas speak all languages, shorter fella sign languages. I'm sure when you speak all 11 official languages of this country. Except, but Afrikaans, you do understand it. No, but I'm saying you speak a high majority of the languages that we have on the land. We have people here who are Sotho. Perhaps Sothos, we are limited to like 3 languages. Afrikaans people 2, English people 1.5, Afrikaans half. So you must never undermine yourself when it comes to ability and intelligence, because the kids are listening. Imagine if someone in your family as a self-employed tiger, 10 years in the game, self-employed. How many of your young people look up to you in the community, in your family, and they hear you say that? Yes, it will damage them forever.
No, but in his defense.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm not attacking him.
No, I'm just saying, but in his defense, I think the problem is not that. It can't just be that when you say decolonize education, we are only focusing on changing the language, but not even the curriculum. But at the same time, I think for ease of use, I think by default, we are a special nation. And that's why he's trying to say, let's keep it moving with English. We will learn these languages as we move along. I think also it's the duty of the parents. Like now, I grew up in Joburg. Switch. So I think everyone here, inherently, you have your own culture and your tradition. But I think in the workspace or in the working language, I think let's keep it going, comrades. Yourself, your thoughts?
I think I want to agree with Nhlanhla on his perspective fully.
Taking me now.
No, it's not an attack. I think I want to agree fully because, like I mentioned it before, we must be unapologetic about decolonization. We cannot be able to say it's just for this one, let's accommodate communists. No, we can't. If you say we are decolonizing, then it must be one way, all of it, you understand? And if we are in a process of decolonization, then everyone must form part of it. Whether you are Tsonga, whether you are Venda, whether you are Sotho and everything of the sort, it must all form part of it. You understand what I'm saying? So we cannot therefore say, ish, because you guys are two, we are minority, let's just forget about you for now. You understand? So it must be inclusive of everyone, whether it's Tsonga, whether Venda, whether Sotho, anything of the sort. So it must be inclusive of everyone within South Africa as well. And I want to come in on the aspect that my brother outlined there to say that in the question of the stereotype that currently exists, that you know what, when you go to vets, you are better. Well, the edge is there. Well, the edge is there, but it does not mean that you are better than the person next to you within society. And I always say that when I'm with students, VET's degree does not belong to us, but it belongs to the community. And most of us, when we acquire these degrees, it's our duty and responsibility to go back to the community and give back. Well, there is a stereotype that currently exists to say, you know what, when you're a VET, whether when you are in university, you are better as compared to those who go to TVET colleges and everything of the sort.
Even Eunice is attacked also.
Yes, even Eunice. No one is safe right now. But it goes on to say that most of the times in universities, it's academic degrees that are being provided. When we say I'm doing honors in international relations, it's an academic degree for me to be able to acquire. It means that I aspire to be an academic or I aspire to be a scholar. But you find that so many young people who actually come from TVET colleges are able to navigate and get jobs afterwards because they're being taught skills. We read content, we read most of the times it's theory. But when you come from university, you struggle. You cannot be able to find a job. Because if you come from TVET college, you are able to get a skill of how to be a plumber, a skill of how to do construction. So it's skill-based. TVET, as a matter of fact, I will encourage most young people to actually explore TVET colleges. But at the same time, the information of TVET colleges is not that much easier for us to access it. So hence it's easier for most young people to just say, I know VETs, I know UJ, let me just apply there. It's easier. Those are the universities that you know. But we don't know much about TVET colleges. We cannot be able to count to say, this is the college I can explore and everything of the sort. Even the application system as well. It's not easy. You can just go search there and say VET, and then it pops up. And then TVET, you still want to think, how do I go about it? So the information, even how to access TVET colleges, is limited. But to say that when you are in the university, you are better than the one of TVET colleges, really, is something we must be able to try to work against and conscientize young people to say, really, if you want to go work, here's a TVET college. But then if you do aspire to be an academic, then you can go to VETs like myself.
I think I must declare as well, I was the president of SRC at the TVET college in the West Rand, right? And most of my development, political and leadership was in the TVET college.
Yes, President.
And I navigated all the way up through Boston. And now I'm here with Nhlanhla. Nhlanhla, on that part, how do we make TVETs and this other education oriented programs more fashionable than just to do VETs? Maybe
I think again we must guard how we say these things. If we're starting to make these institutions fashionable, you must know we got it wrong somewhere. Let's go back to the education system at an early age, post grade 7, when you start getting into standard 6. Why are we still making education system theory only? Let's make sure when you graduate grade 12, you are able to do basic plumbing, guys. Let's make sure when you graduate grade 12, you've got the necessary skills so that even when you go to the TVET colleges, you are there to sharpen the skill, not create the HB pencil. We're just there to make it sharp so that your drawing can be perfect. That's just the point that I want to make. Because when you look at the high schools that we all go to, I can give all of you a high school grade 10. And by the way, we had prepared it as part of the show. We are all going to write a grade 10 exam paper. We want to see how many of you will pass that exam paper at grade 10. Right? It's a surprise. Now, just to show you that if majority of you are going to fail it, including the ones that are doing 20 degrees now in university, you're going to fail that grade 10 paper. It then speaks to this thing of our education system. Is it really the education system? But if you were then taught how to use your hands in unison with your mind, and you are able to be a plumber or do electrical work, and I say, here's a plug, sort it out for me, and you know where to put your earth, your live wire, that means that's the grade 10 exam paper I want to see my kids go through. Proper skills, so that you don't get left out in the economy of this country. How's about cutting hair becomes a subject in high school? Because how many people cut their hairs? All of you here have had a certain haircut or two in the last 6 months. Who's doing that? It's a big part of the economy. So who's doing that? So exactly. So the education system, like I said when I started, must be in line with the economic system of our country.
Thank you to our panelists, Nombulelo, Chiya, Magabai Chiya, and Nhlanhla. Please give them a round of applause. Sure. As we heard it's about development, empowerment, the mental attitude. Maybe our youth needs to start and figure out their new struggle. What is their struggle of the 21st century young person? What defines you being a young person in South Africa above all racial lines? And our problems are more common than ever before. So as a young person tuned into this today, what are your thoughts? Please write them on the comment section. Remember to share, subscribe, and like. This is Podcast Party. Tune in, turn up. Take action. I am Bafana Modise. Ciao, ciao.